The once mighty King Kagara of the Kimusu Kingdom, a man whose name commanded respect across the entire region, was now reduced to a shadow of his former self. His kingdom, the largest and most powerful in the land, stood strong, yet its ruler lay on his deathbed, stricken by an illness so strange that even the most skilled healers could not determine its cause. King Kagara had ruled with wisdom and strength for decades. His kingdom was known for its vast fields, skilled warriors, and bustling markets. Golden farmlands stretched as far as the eye could see. His warriors were trained from youth, disciplined, fearless, and loyal. Men whose very presence on the battlefield struck terror into rival clans. In the heart of the kingdom, markets pulsed with life. Traders from Kimusu and from distant lands trading, and wealth flowing through the hands of farmers, craftsmen, and merchants alike. His people loved him. His enemies feared him. But now they watched helplessly as their king deteriorated before their eyes. Desperate, the kingmakers summoned every healer and seer from across the region. Wise men and women who had traversed distant lands came with their herbs, charms, and incantations, but none could cure the king. His body grew weaker by the day, his breath more shallow, and his once brilliant eyes became clouded with fever. As the king's condition worsened, the powerful seers, native doctors, and the chief priest gathered again in the king's chambers and performed sacred rituals to commune with the gods. The tension was unbearable as they awaited the gods' revelation. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the gods spoke, their voices echoing in the air like distant thunder. As the sound rolled through the heavens, a glowing scroll materialized and hung suspended in the air, turning slowly as if carried by an unseen wind. Sacred symbols burned upon it with divine fire, and from its words the gods proclaimed their decree. The message was clear. King Kagara had only 7 days to live unless he could drink from the sacred waters of Magura, a mystical rock said to hold the power to cure any ailment. But the task was not simple. Magura, also known as the Rock of Death, was located far away, beyond treacherous mountains, vast rivers, dense forests, and ancient burial grounds. No mortal had ever ventured there and returned. The gods made their decree. A group of brave, strong-willed youths would be chosen to undertake this perilous journey. They would need to possess great courage, resilience, and unwavering determination. The journey was fraught with dangers, shape-shifting spirits, demons of the night, ancient graves, and more. And the most crucial rule of all, once they left Kimusu's borders, they must never look back, never succumb to temptation, and never drink from any river other than River Mura, where they could fill their gourds and refresh. The elders and kingmakers agreed that only the strongest, most daring youths of the kingdom would be entrusted with this task, not just for their strength, but for their courage and ability to follow the gods' strict instructions without wavering. King Kagara's illness sparked the greatest quest in Kimusu's history. The day had come. 14 brave youths, 2 from each of Kimusu's 7 clans, stood ready for the dangerous journey ahead. Their leader was Ikemba, the youth leader of the entire Kimusu kingdom from the Umuagu clan, a fierce warrior known for his courage and indomitable spirit. Alongside him were Azuka, his second-in-command, and a champion wrestler from Umudike clan, Obiora, the palm wine tapper from Umuogba clan, Emeka, the goldsmith from Umuagu clan, Okoye, the farmer from Umuola clan, Somtochukwu, the trader from Umuoka clan, Chidi, the archer from Umugogo clan, Chinonso, the herbalist from Umuoke clan, Olisa, the flutist from Umugodo clan, Chukwudi, the hunter from Umuoke clan, Obi, the drummer from Umuola clan, Chibuzo, the dressmaker from Umuogba clan, Amadi, the fisherman from Umuoka clan, and Okoro, the forest guard from Umudike clan. These were the 14 selected warriors. The selected warriors had undergone rigorous physical and spiritual trials under the guidance of the chief priest. They had passed through the water and fire baptism, their bodies tested, and their spirits hardened for the journey to Magura. The fire and water baptism was a trial of flesh and soul. At dawn, the warriors were led into the cold, restless river, where they stood waist-deep as the chief priest chanted ancient incantations, forcing them to remain still while the current battered their bodies, numbing their limbs and stripping away fear, pride, and weakness. At dusk, they faced the fire, walking barefoot across heated stones, standing within a ring of flames as smoke stung their eyes and heat scorched their skin, each man holding his breath and his courage as pain tested his resolve. The water broke their bodies, the fire tempered their spirits. By the end, they emerged strong and unshaken, no longer ordinary men, but warriors bound by endurance, obedience, and a sacred readiness for the peril that awaited them at Magura. As the sun rose, casting a golden hue over the land, the villagers gathered at the edge of Kimusu to see the brave youths off. The chief priest, his face grim with the weight of the task ahead, placed his hands on each of their heads, blessing them with sacred chants. Around them, mothers clutched their sons, tears streaming freely as wails of sorrow and prayer filled the air and calling their names in trembling voices. Some women beat their chests and smeared dust on their faces, mourning in advance, knowing the road ahead was cruel and unforgiving. The elders stood in solemn silence, eyes heavy with unspoken fears, fully aware that many of these youths might never return. "Do not look back," the chief priest warned them. "The moment you do, you shall die. And remember, once you cross the boundary of Kimusu, you are on your own. The gods will watch over you, but only if you stay true to your path and remain courageous." With these words, the group set off, crossing the boundary of the kingdom and stepping into the unknown. The air grew thick with anticipation, but no one spoke a word. There was only the sound of footsteps and the rustle of the wind as they journeyed into the wilds. The youths quickly found that the path ahead was far more dangerous than they had imagined. In the thick forests, unseen creatures stalked them. The oppressive heat made their bodies ache with exhaustion. But the most terrifying threats came at night, when the shape-shifting spirits began to attack. These spirits could take any form: animals, trees, even fellow travelers. They whispered lies, attempting to deceive them and lead them astray. Ikemba remained vigilant, refusing to trust anything that seemed out of place. The first trial came without mercy. Okoye, tall and confident, took the lead. He walked with firm steps, chest forward, determined to prove his worth. Suddenly, he froze. His body leaned as though an invisible wall had slammed into him. His feet skidded on the ground, dust scattering. He felt an invisible force push against him. Startled, he turned, believing it was one of his companions trying to warn him of danger. He turned his head slowly. Too slowly. "Okoye, don't look back!" Kemba screamed. But it was too late. Okoye's eyes widened. Something was calling his name from behind, a voice that sounded like his mother crying out in pain. Against his will, his head turned fully, his neck twisting with unnatural force.
His breath vanished from his chest. Okoye's scream was swallowed whole by the shadow. Then silence. There was no trace of him. No blood, not even footprints. He was gone. Gone forever. Taken by demons that lurked in the shadows of the night before anyone could react. The group trembled. Ikemba shut his eyes and whispered, "May the gods guide your soul, brother." The path ahead grew darker with every step. The air felt heavier, like the weight of unseen eyes pressed against their backs. The forest trees twisted into strange shapes, attempting to snatch at the group. Even the wind seemed to whisper warnings. Then came tragedy. A demon took the form of Obiora, mimicking his voice, his walk, even the familiar scar on his arm. In the confusion and fear of the moment, Chukudi raised his gun, believing he was saving the others from an unseen threat. Boom! He fired a shot, but the cry that followed was human. Obiora collapsed, blood spilling onto the earth as life drained from his eyes, his brothers watching in helpless horror. When the truth became clear and the demon vanished into the shadows, Chukudi fell to his knees, grief and guilt crushing his spirit. Unable to live with the weight of what he had done, he turned his weapon on himself, choosing death over a life haunted by his brother's blood. My journey ends here. I cannot live with the consequences of my actions. Boom! He took his life. They spent the night in turmoil, mourning. With 3 gone and only 4 days left for King Kagara, the group grew desperate. As they continued their journey, Emeka, strong but weary, began to stagger. His breath came in ragged gasps, his shoulders sagging under an invisible weight. Without warning, his knees gave way, and he collapsed onto the earth, the dust rising around him like a final sigh. They lifted him quickly, draping his arms over their shoulders, refusing to leave him behind. Step after painful step, they carried him forward, whispering prayers and promises of the cool waters of River Mura, believing its touch would restore his strength. But the journey was unforgiving. His grip loosened, his head fell back, and by the time they reached the riverbank, Emeka was already gone. His strength had carried him far, but not far enough. Still, they pressed on. The elders' warning echoed in their minds. Do not look back. Stay focused. After a long and exhausting journey, coupled with intense pain and fatigue, they finally arrived at River Mura on the 3rd day. Mura, peaceful, calm, the only clean and safe source of drinking water, stood before them like a promise of life. They leapt for joy. They drank deeply. They refreshed their weary bodies and filled their gourds to the brim. Then tears fell. They remembered those they had lost along the way and prayed for the repose of their souls. Ikemba stepped forward to remind them, "We will not retreat. We will not surrender." After a short rest, they gathered their strength and continued. The River of Death, Okuta, the 7 rivers in one. The 3rd trial came at River Okuta, known as the 7 rivers in one. When the youths got to the river, their spirits nearly broke. The water was icy, swift, and filled with crocodiles. Its roar thundered like a monstrous beast. The water churned violently, splashing against jagged rocks, forming 7 swirling currents that intertwined like serpents fighting for dominance. The air smelled of mud, decay, and danger. No bridge, no boats, no way around. They either crossed or died. Amadi stepped forward first, for he was a fisherman and knew rivers well. He tested the waters with his stick, observing the flow. It broke instantly, snapped from the current, and vanished downstream. His eyes widened. "This river is alive," he whispered. The cold water rose to their waists, then their chests. The current pulled at their legs, trying to drag them under like unseen hands. The youths fought their way across, linking arms for strength, clinging to rocks and branches, their bodies battered and weary. and the crocodiles hovering around them like a lion waiting to devour its prey, yet the river showed no mercy. Suddenly, the water surged with a strong force, ripping Okoro like a leaf in a storm. He slipped when a wave struck him, a wall of water that came out of nowhere. It struck his chest with terrifying force, knocking the air out of him. His grip slipped from Chibuzo's hand, despite Chibuzo's desperate attempt to hold him back. "Okoye, don't let go!" they cried, all stretching their hands to grab him, but the river was faster, pulling him down with great force. Okoro fought desperately, kicking against the current, but the river spun him like a rag doll. His head slammed against a rock, blood burst like red mist, and the current dragged him away, swallowing him into the roaring chaos. His scream vanished. The group trembled. River Okuta was not done yet. Fate was not finished. A few steps later, disaster struck again. Amadi lost his footing. It happened in the blink of an eye. His heel slid on moss-slicked stone, and his balance failed him. The river seized the moment, grabbing him like a jealous spirit, dragging him under with relentless force. Ikemba shouted, his voice tearing through the chaos, "Don't let go!" Too late. A massive crocodile's tail broke the surface, then another. The water exploded into violent motion. Amadi's final scream shattered into choking gurgles as the river claimed him into the roaring chaos. Ikemba, eyes burning with tears, roared into the wind. Why? He was a fisherman. This was his home. The river gave no answer. The crocodiles vanished beneath the darkening crimson-stained waters, their hunger satisfied. One by one, the remaining youths clawed their way to the bank, trembling, bruised, sobbing. They collapsed onto the sand, bodies shaking from cold, from terror, from grief too heavy to bear. Ikemba fell to his knees and slammed his fists into the earth. "How many more must we lose?" he whispered, his voice cracking like breaking glass. They rose again, not because strength remained, but because there was no turning back and time was running out. With shattered hearts and unsteady legs, they continued in silence.
The path beyond River Okuta led them to a sight that froze their hearts, Mount Udo. By the 5th day, the group reached the towering mountains that separated them from Magura, a monstrous wall of stone, its peak disappearing into a shroud of mist and cloud. The trail up was narrow, cruel and slick from old rain, a path that allowed only one person at a time and no room for mistakes. The wind howled as if warning them, "Turn back, turn back." But turning back was death, so they climbed. Ikemba led, Somtochukwu behind him struggled to keep his footing. The mountain groaned beneath them, wind screaming like tortured spirits, stones cracking like old bones. They climbed with hands and knees, fingers bleeding from jagged rock. Every step felt like it cost a year of their life. The climb was treacherous, with loose rocks and steep cliffs. Their breaths were ragged. The mountain was hungry. Somtochukwu's foot landed on loose gravel. The rock slid. His arms flailed. His body tumbled, crashing against the cliffside. "Ikemba!" he cried. Ikemba turned, just in time to see Somto's eyes wide with terror. He lunged, stretching as far as the mountain allowed. Their fingertips grazed, only for a second. Somtochukwu vanishing into the bottomless mist. No scream followed, only silence. They stood frozen, breath held, hearts shattered, but there was no time to mourn. The mountain demanded focus or it would claim them all. They moved on, broken but alive, climbing until the sun dipped low and shadows stretched long. At last they reached the summit, only to face something worse. The real danger lay in the ancient burial grounds at the foot of the mountain. The graves were said to be cursed, a resting place for the forgotten ancestors of Kimusu, and many believed the spirits of the dead would rise to protect the graves.
As the group made their way through the graveyard, strange sounds filled the air. Low growls, whispers, and the sound of footsteps echoed around them. In the distance, a shadowy figure moved, and it was then that the spirits began to show themselves. One by one, they attacked, beings that appeared as relatives or friends, tricking the youths into lowering their guard. But they remembered the chief priest's words, "Do not trust them." Despite this, the graves trembled and the ground shuddered beneath their feet. Suddenly, 3 graves burst open at once with a deafening crack. Chinoson, Olisa, and Chukwudi were pulled toward the earth by spectral hands, their screams echoing as the soil rose and swallowed them whole. Ikemba, with his unwavering resolve, led the group through the labyrinth of the graves, fighting off the spirits with his sword. But even as they emerged from the graveyard, the toll was heavy. Chidi and Chibuzo were almost gone as a result of hunger, pain, and frustration. For miles, the land offered nothing, no water, no shade, no fruit-bearing trees. Their bodies trembled with hunger, their tongues dry like cracked clay. They staggered onward, leaving the graveyard behind them. Their end came slowly and painfully after the horrors of the graveyard. Their bodies finally failed them. Hunger hollowed their strength, wounds burned with infection, and each step felt heavier than the last. When they could no longer continue, they collapsed beneath a twisted, lifeless tree. Ikemba and Azuka tried to lift them, to drag them forward, but Chidi shook his head weakly, gripping Ikemba's arm with what little strength he had left. "I am tired of watching my brothers die, tired of fear, tired of pain, tired of hunger. Let me rest." His body shook uncontrollably. His breathing slowed. The light drained from his eyes like water seeping from a cracked pot. Ikemba stooped to him. "Chibuzo, please, do not give up." Chibuzo, tears streaming down his dust-streaked face, pleaded with the remaining 2 to go on without them. "Do not waste the king's last day on us," he whispered. "Let our lives buy him time." They clung to each other as brothers, urging Ikemba and Azuka to run, to save Kimusu while there was still hope. With heavy hearts and shattered spirits, the 2 survivors obeyed, leaving them behind. As night fell, Chukwudi's breath faded first, his eyes fixed on a homeland he would never see again. Chibuzo held him until the cold crept into his own bones, and by dawn, the journey had claimed them both, not by violence, but by sacrifice, love, and the cruel mercy of time.
By the 6th day, only 2 remained, Ikemba and Azuka, and King Kagara had just 1 day to live. Their bodies were broken from the journey, their spirits nearly crushed by the deaths of their team members. As they approached Magura Rock, they could feel the weight of the place, its eerie silence a stark contrast to the horror they had faced. The gods' final test awaited them. One of them must be sacrificed to the god of Magura in order to release the sacred waters that would save King Kagara. Ikemba, despite his pain and exhaustion, knew what had to be done. With a heavy heart, he looked at Azuka. "I will be the one," he said, his voice breaking. Azuka shouted, "No, let me be the one." Ikemba smiled weakly and hugged Azuka. "My journey ends here." Azuka tried to protest, but Ikemba's decision was final. He had led them this far, and now he would fulfill the prophecy, giving his life so that the kingdom could be saved. As soon as he offered himself, the heavy rock of Magura descended with a thunderous force, crushing the earth and sealing his body beneath its weight. For a moment, all was still. Then a single drop of water formed at the cracked stone, trembling like a hesitant tear. Another followed, then several more, dripping steadily, echoing through the hollow chamber.
The drops became thin streams, the streams merged, and suddenly the rock burst with life as water surged forth in a powerful rush, carving its path through the sacred ground. Only then did the suspended god appear, hovering above the flowing waters, a solemn sign that the sacrifice had been accepted and Magura had awakened. Azuka grabbed it and filled it with the flowing water. Exhausted and weak, he staggered out of Magura Rock, barely alive. His legs could barely carry him. He was tired, hungry, and with the weight of the journey, Ikemba's sacrifice, and the memory of those they had lost along the way, his feeble heart could not bear it. He fainted and passed out. A benevolent spirit lifted Azuka with impossible ease, the body rising like a feather on windless air. "Your journey has not ended," it murmured, and with the speed of light brought him to the border of Kimusu. This was the 7th day, the very last day left for King Kagara to live. The chief priest, having received spiritual signals, heaves a sigh of relief and rushed to the border of Kimusu on his chief priest's robe to receive the only survival. Azuka managed to regain consciousness, weak and trembling with the gourd in his hands containing the sacred water from Magura. He staggered forward, the weight of the journey too much to bear, but he pushed on with the last of his strength. But fate is cruel. Azuka stumbled and fell. In that moment, the gourd slipped from his hands, crashing onto the ground. The sacred water spilled, its precious contents seeping into the earth. Azuka, already on the brink of exhaustion, collapsed. His head struck a rock. The blow, coupled with his severe fatigue, hunger, and the overwhelming toll of the journey, ended his life instantly. The chief priest wept bitterly, his cries echoing through the silent land. He had failed. The prophecy had not been fulfilled, and there was no hope left for King Kagara. At that very moment, deep within the royal palace, King Kagara took his final breath. The kingdom's greatest ruler had passed, the mighty Iroko had fallen, and Kimusu was plunged into chaos and mourning. Kimusu fell silent. 14 brave souls gone. A king dead. A mission failed. The entire kingdom gathered in sorrow. The once bustling marketplace now eerily quiet, the air thick with grief. The loss of their king was unimaginable, but the death of these 14 brave youths who had risked everything to save him left the people utterly shattered. The news of Azuka's death spread like wildfire. Kimusu's citizens mourned not only the king, but also the loss of these courageous warriors who had given their lives in a futile attempt to save their ruler. The elders wept for the kingdom's fate. Deep within their hearts, they feared the worst. The journey of the 14 youths, their trials, and their sacrifices would never be forgotten. Their story would be passed down through generations, a tale of bravery, hardship, and the harsh truth that sometimes, no matter how great the effort, destiny cannot be avoided. Many questions remained unanswered. Would Kimusu ever recover from this immense loss? Could another hero arise among the people, someone destined to emerge from the ashes of this tragedy? Could anyone face the trials ahead, or was the kingdom doomed forever? Who would inherit the legacy of King Kagara? Did the gods send 14 warriors to Magura only to watch them fall, while still allowing King Kagara to perish? What was their true motive? There is more to this than meets the eye. A mystery is yet to be uncovered, and a twist to this tale will open the door to further secrets and revelations. Stay tuned for part 2 of You Have 7 Days to Live.